what we're talking about.
It was power spent $8,000, and I don't know exactly where it went.
Because we had, almost seemed to me like they came back and added fencing at some point.
There's a little spot between the band room and the little building by the baseball field I noticed had fencing around it, but that's just a little bit. So I don't think it's
And I
that.
don't know that this was at the high school. It could have been at Willis, Checker, Indian Valley. In fact,
This is true.
I'm tempted to say I think it was at like Willis and Chet, but I'm not positive.
Is there a problem if we hold that to our next day meeting to get more information?
I mean, those are not part of tonight's thing. Those are bills that had already been paid.
Oh, that's all already been paid?
Yes.
Okay, so we missed it.
Yes.
So how do we not get more information about this kind of stuff? What are we missing? What are we missing in reports? What are we missing to tell us what's going on? Why are we not getting reports that tell us about this?
Overruns or additions or?
Anything. I mean, how about we ask that question? I just think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm not pointing any fingers. My fingers did not leave the table, but I can just.
They have bi-weekly HVAC and air conditioner meetings. And Terry was going to those, and then when she left, I went to those.
Right.
And I haven't been to them in the past month.
Right.
But I mean, and they talk about these things, and we could certainly look it up.
So if they're talked about, is somebody taking minutes at those meetings?
Thompson and Litton provides minutes and agendas, yes.
Yeah, we should. I mean, I think they should be a part of our packets.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to see them.
Okay.
I think it's important to watch where the dollars are being spent. These dollars are every single citizen of this county's money, and if I'm sitting in this chair, I'm going to want to know how and where the money is spent. That's my personal, opinion.
I can tell you that there are minutes of the air conditioner and HVAC meetings. I have never seen minutes of the CCDC meetings.
You know what? I think that's a request that I don't know. I mean, I guess this board might have to do it, but.
And I would also add, if there's surprises before they proceed forward or that, that's going to cost more money, I think the county should get a heads up and at least have an opportunity to discuss it before they jump in and move forward. If it's something that was left out of the contract or, I mean, price overruns, that's a little bit out of control. If you bought any building supplies, So, but just stuff out of the blue, I think there should be a heads up long before it's authorized.
I think if we shouldn't have to pay for anything we haven't been notified of ahead of time.
Well,
And able to discuss.
these are projects, and now I'm worried about the $14 million project.
Yeah.
And we really need to go back and do some investigating on it. When we set a price here, for me, I'm talking for myself, that I agree to, I expect that final price that I agree to sitting here to cover everything. Now, like I said, occasional cost overrun on 2x4s or whatever, but I'm talking about the total project including, so if a project's $2 million and you got 500,000 extras, when the number hits this table, then it needs to be the total number. And I'm not speaking for the board, but you may disagree with me, because I know we sit here, we bid that project out, then we rebid it, we bid back and forth, we went over to the school. A lot of future projects after we agreed to that, I sat here and based my agreement to those projects on a fixed number that I knew we were already responsible for.
Correct.
And so, I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I started it.
I didn't mean to take over.
No, that's fine. I like it when people join the party.
It's just, when the numbers hits here, it needs to be the total number.
Okay.
Whoever's sitting here now and in the future.
On the $14 million project, I wonder if it would be helpful for us if we could just get like little updates on, we know it's 14 million, but maybe just a one sheet thing that's, excavation is 2 million. Break it down into sections as they go forward and say, all right, cost estimate was this, here's where we're at, this is how much we spent, and just kind of a running tally. That way we can kind of just, in our minds, have an idea of what's going on.
And I don't expect an extra fence cost like at the high school on that project, because when we met at the high school, I was one of the first ones to bring up, look, we need a wall, we need something around those tanks. So that should, the fence around it should not be an extra cost.
I thought that was brought up from you was wanting a wall.
Yeah, I wanted a wall,
Absolutely.
and they were talking about fencing, which I want something a little more substantial, but.
Well, yeah,
so-
30,000 gallons of liquid propane sitting on the hill.
But whatever goes around that one should not be an extra or an add-on, because it was talked about from the very first.
And I appreciate the updates we're getting. I'm not saying that is not appreciated, but just telling me that we're on track and da-da-da, it doesn't really give us, this, I am responsible for my little district, Little River District constituents and how this money is being spent. And I take that job seriously. And I want to make sure that the money that's being spent is being spent correctly, within budget, and
We get that thing every month that says, this is what we budgeted, this is what's been spent, we got a certain percentage of
Right.
it. I can't see why they can't do that
on the project,
on
yeah.
the project too.
That's a great point. Great point, Chairman.
Anything else?
I think approval of the loan disbursement.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion?
That included the
Yes,
Is Mr. Yoder, I'm sorry, I think that's Mr. Coleman.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Mr. Yoder.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
And Mr. Turner.
yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rhodes, we used 5 minutes of your time, so. I just need to go out to Congress and retrain
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I've got books. You got to expect that after all these days, years. I think here, I'll let you have it. Send these around.
Thank you.
I got them both. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse my reach.
I'll just pass them on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I always try to just next to those in the audience, so.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Well, thank you again. David Rose here, and what I'd like to do tonight is to update you on where we are and hopefully see if we can get a consensus from the board. I need to start by saying that post my discussion with you, I thought y'all had provided us an excellent thought, and that was to look at the fire truck at 10 years as well as 15 years. And I will tell you, based upon some further discussions with your staff that have been incredibly helpful, we'll recommend that you use that 10-year approach. I think it makes sense. And I think at the end of the day, it produces all the things that we collectively, we the county, were hoping to get. So I won't be too long this evening. A lot of what you see here has been in the same format of what I gave just 2 weeks ago. And so, again, this is that background. Don't need to belabor it other than the last bullet point, which was when we did our planning, we talked about needing between 3 and 5.5 pennies to both finish the equivalent, again, I use that term, equivalent. We talked about that needing to both finish the school project that's already been funded, as well as these projects that we're talking about today. So interest rates are remaining stable. Again, they move around quickly at times, but again, we are in that mode, and as you may recall, all the rates that were given to us were fixed. And one little caveat, in going back again to Skyline, they have dropped their rate a few more basis points. So they've now done it twice. And so that's factored into all of this. So these are just the rates, and they look very good. I guess you can see there like the 10-year treasury, just to get a little bit mathematical for the moment. Back 20 or so years ago, that rate was 7%, and today that rate is 1.5%. So again, better to be lucky than smart, and that's how I feel. All right. So, executive summary. This is new, and this is by virtue of all the discussions and all the things that have occurred. I indicated to you that when I was here last time, it was a work in progress, and I feel like with your blessing, hopefully this will be something that will make sense, and that is this. We are recommending that we do this program in 2 parts. One part, the bigger part, with Truist, because they are considerably lower in cost, even after the change of interest rates by Skyline. And then we do a portion of that with Skyline, because then that was very opportune and that worked well. You'll notice there under the Skyline part, the fire truck, 10 or 15 years, we've got all the cash flows in the back, and we've spent several hours with staff making sure that we're really in sync as it relates to budget. And I listen to all of you, especially Ms. Kuchenbuck. You can be sure that all those cash flows and all the details are there. And so with that said, this is the critical pieces, once again, for everyone. There's nothing new here. And that first bullet point, that is the equivalent penny for the school project, high school project, has always been and is 1 penny. And then we need the equivalent of the 2 pennies to take care of this roughly $8 million of new money needs. Now, here is the important things, the same as last time. The meals tax revenues at $175,000, that's nothing new. And then the county deposit into that strategic capital reserve fund. What has made all this work so nicely is that we've got the 197, that's been there, that was there from the last refinancing that we did. And then the meals tax fund balance went up from 400,000, as I mentioned the last time, to 489. That's important because that allows us in the county, to go from a 15-year to a 10-year and never deplete that capital reserve. We get down low, but we still are in the black. And that's what we cared about, so that you do not have a nasty surprise down the road saying we need extra dollars. Now, I will say, I cannot control the costs. We borrowed that $8 million of new money. If it goes over that, then I'll let y'all work on that. But I want to make sure, that's why I like to come to meetings on time or early. I get the flavor, but I think I know y'all pretty well after all these years. Okay. So, here's what we're doing tonight, or asking tonight. It's an informal request, and here's why. Because as you recall, we need to go through the EDA. And the EDA will actually meet on Monday, May 10th through a Zoom meeting. So we will be there. Kyle and I will be on Zoom, and we are going to ask, of course, some of the critical staff people to be a part of that and the attorneys to be a part of that. But then the next night, the board, your board here, you take your actions. That's what happens. And that was sort of the way it got set up, so that what we'd like to do, and I think it would be very helpful for us to be in the mode that when the EDA, I should say, the EDA meets and they say, well, what is the decision of the board? We would like to be able to say, the board has endorsed this, and tomorrow night, meaning that next night, they will formally approve that. That is our hope, and I just think that would add a lot to the overall strength of this, because again, the EDA is a pass-through, and you at the end of the day are the deep pocket for all of this. So, here is the recommendations, just to make sure everybody sees it. You can see the radio and the rec building office and the shell building, all would be done, as well as, of course, the fire truck, garbage truck, and ambulance. So that collectively is the $8 million. Different pieces have different years tied to them, which is, again, tied to the useful life. That's important, and that hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is that we'd like to recommend the fire truck that Skyline will do would be at 10 years. They have indicated they're fine with that. Come on through. No, come on through. All right. So the rationale for all this is that this is the most cost-effective way to do it. So that begs the question, if we did all of this with Skyline, which they would love to do, they made it clear, that amended, modified, wow, didn't know it was that popular. So what they have said, and this is for the record, with their second change of rates, the cost to the county would be an extra $282,000.
That's if they do the whole thing.
That's if they do the whole thing. So your taxpayers, you talk about propane at $1,000, now multiply that by 282 times. And I felt like personally with my colleagues and with your staff, we are recommending that we do this with a combination, because that is really the most cost effective. The prepayment penalties are also very favorable. We had talked at length to Cindy and talked to legal counsel about the potential, if some of those, I'll call it ARP monies, whatever, possibly, there will be a way to do that. It may not be perfect if the ARP monies come in a certain way. So we have the ability to carve some of these things out, pay them off with minimal, not very much prepayment penalties, if it looks like we're going to be able to get something so beneficial. So the other thing is, as I recall saying last time, and that was that Skyline had indicated that if they did all of this, they would need more collateral than what, again, is the combination. Because the combination here is one simple thing, and that is the county administration building. Come on in. One more chair. The county administration building. That's all that is required. The last Skyline proposal we got wanted both the administration building, the radio, and the new rec building office. So they wanted 3 pieces of collateral. Truist wanted 1, and again, their best bid was again almost about $280,000, $282 more. Now they can always come back to you, and this is all public. I personally would recommend that we do not go that way. I think we should do the combination. Here's why. I've had the good fortune of being in front of the Floyd PSA, for example. There's inevitably going to be financing down the road by the PSA, whether it's short term or later. I think if we at this point were to take this away from Truist, even if they met the $280,000, I think that would send a bad signal to the bond and to the banking markets that, you know what, don't waste your time going forward. And the problem, as you know, is Skyline, which is a very good bank, has gotten very much interested in helping and all that. The problem is they have to shorten, or not shorten, they have to take less of that line of credit. They have to diminish that line of credit, they have told us, for purposes of their, we'll call it the amount that they can take under one credit. And so as a result, I just think we put ourselves in a precarious position to be relying on one lender for anything and going forward. So I would not like to see us lose Truist, because again, they are the combination of both BB&T and SunTrust, both of which have been good to the county in the past. And I'd like us to see that we continue to spread that business around, and they are as well local here as part of the overall community. So with that, I mentioned the collateral, I mentioned those other considerations there on that page. These are the next steps. Tonight, at the board meeting that we're here at, we'd like to get your informal approval for this, so that, again, we can get the wheels rolling and the documentation can be put together for both the EDA and for you for that May 10th / May 11th meeting. And then we're required to close on or before that Friday the 21st while the rates are staying locked in. Happy to answer any questions to the board, and hopefully I've made this not too confusing. But I do think these are very, very good results, and they do everything we hoped that we would get when we started this whole process, and it keeps us flexible and within the budget.
And question?
I'm curious, why, if you could tell me why the interest rates on the radio system are so much less than the shell bill? It's like the buildings are almost, if they were to repossess something, it already seems like the building would be.
So great question. So you see on this page, number 7, the shell building is done on a taxable basis, and that's a federal requirement, and that's why. So it has to be done taxably. So this was a pretty complex combination of cash flows. We're really doing 5 distinct financings and rolling them up into one. But once again, the beauty of that is that they also can be broken apart in terms of prepaid and things of that nature. So it's rolled up on the one hand, it's also been able to be broken out. And by the way, I think your question will be, certainly all of the different loans will be put into a separate column, if you would. So you'll know what payments are for each of those loans. And we've got that in the appendix. And you'll also have that with the closing documents. So that'll be a part of it too. Yes.
It just caught my eye. I thought, my goodness, if everything here, it seems like the building would be the one thing the bank would say, well, that's the stainless. They could,
Yeah.
if they had no good, they could sell it.
And the reason that's done that way, Mr. Yoder, is because more than likely the hope is that building will end up going to a private, interest. And when it goes to a private interest, it doesn't meet certain tax exempt categories. Just like you and I, if we go to the bank and borrow for a car, we're borrowing when we realize it on a taxable basis. Whereas you as the county, if you own the building, you're borrowing on a tax exempt basis because you're a not-for-profit. That's how it works.
So when will all of this get financed, basically?
May 21st.
May 21st. So if we hear back that we can use infrastructure money,
Right.
and let's say take this loan down to $7 million, and I know we talked about the radio, but what if we paid the fire truck, garbage truck, and ambulance? What if they were all infrastructurable payments that could be made, it might not be a real word, but
I get you.
everybody understood it, that would be $1 million, and that would be, that much less than we'd have to finance.
I would hope that is the case. I do.
But then we'd have to pay a prepayment penalty.
No.
Not with Skyline.
Not with Skyline,
Well, there'll be, here
because
again.
that's Skyline's
Right,
stuff.
so
Right.
those pieces you can see are with Skyline.
Right,
So that's very favorable. What I think will happen though, I say think, hope is what happen, is there's some talk, not official, that the first dollop of these ARP monies is supposed to be around May 11th.
right.
Supposed to be. Don't hold me to it. I have no inside knowledge other than that's just what's being
No
talked
crystal
about
ball?
by, what's that?
No crystal ball?
No, but I'm saying that meets that 60-day time frame
Right.
that the government said. That doesn't mean anything, but hopefully. And there's even, I've heard some people think it could come out today or tomorrow, next couple of days about
Right.
paperwork. So if it does, again, until you close, that's the way it works. And if we have to amend some things, wonderful. I would like nothing more than
Right.
to say, okay, maybe we have to, delay this, or maybe something has to happen, rework some elements of it.
Right.
That's a good problem. I'm happy to have that problem.
So we can put that caveat in there and just say, hey,
Well, listen, it's,
caveat's there?
there's no caveat, we just don't close on
Right.
that part.
Okay,
And again, banks may not like it, but I think they should understand they're in the best interest of what's in the best interest of the county is.
most of them are citizens of this county anyway.
So it is what it is, if we can get, which I don't realistically see happening, of course, because the money you're supposed to get, if you get all of it, it's not happening, but yes, so let's hope for it. That would not ruin my day at all. It might add some complexity and, some little bit of jawboning with the banks and everything else. And if I have to come back and say, they want to blow everything up and unless you start all over again, well, I don't think that would be the case. I think the main pieces of it, the truest part, with the radio system and the cell building, I think those are probably pretty rock solid, so. And then again, both the banks have approved you credit-wise, so from that perspective, so. You see me every other week, so I'll be coming back, but I don't know.
Put a few miles on that car.
I do.
No, I think it's.
My last one had almost 400,000.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
And I like the fact with Skyline, even if we can't use that money and we have to go this total route, I like the fact that in the future, if the board's sitting here and they want to go ahead and pay down the principal or whatever, they can,
Yeah,
Right.
without penalty.
I remember we did that, I know before Dr. Millsaps was here, but that's the way we set up, if you recall, some of the financings we did a few years ago.
Right.
And whoever expected, what was it, a year or 2 years later, rates came down even more, and we had that very favorable prepayment penalty,
Yeah.
or not have that penalty,
Right.
but had that very prepayment term, and I came to you and said, you know what, let's try to refinance this, and it worked.
Yeah.
So, let's hope.
and you asked Truist if they would waive a prepayment penalty? Did you ask them, or?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
we
right.
did.
Did they
but-
laugh?
No, they just said again, they're very specific, they said the 1%, but again, is what it is, that's just their approach.
Is there some concern that, I haven't followed the federal money very closely, is there some concern that it would only be for new projects and we get too far into this to be able to qualify for new projects?
We don't know the answer. I don't know. Again, so what's happening is your question, like many of these questions, were all put together and synthesized by things like the National Association of Counties, International City Managers, and all of that, and lots of states. They're literally by thousands, but they kind of try to synthesize them so that they're supposed to, as I'm saying, come out with clarification of this. So who knows what? And the last time this happened, with the CARES Act money, they didn't come out once, they came out 4 times. So, and people said, well, what you said here is contradicting that and all that. You know, I think the hope is, and I'm not the lawyer, as you know, I'm not a lawyer, but if you're trying to follow the spirit of this, I think that's the goal, because you're in the same boat as over 100,000 other local governments in this country.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to have to just randomly, which they will do, they will randomly audit, you know, local governments. We could be one of them. And as long as we, with the lawyers, follow protocols and have it defensible, then if they don't like it, well, then we got to deal with the federal government. I mean, that's just the way it is. But if we're following what the spirit is, I know the hope is that they're not going to make an example of you for something that they're not very clear on. And lawyers have told us, it's not me telling you, the lawyers telling us, this is how we interpret this to go do this. And that's the Sands Anderson folks, as you know. And they're the same attorneys for both the EDA and for the counties. So that's a good thing too, is that, you know, not the same people, but the same attorneys that work together. We've worked on them for years. So we'll take their lead. If they say, well, no, we can't do this, we can't pay that, money's got to go other ways, so be it. But we'll see, to be considered.
Do we have the 489 in our meals tax?
We have 493,000.
Good. Well, I really like the idea of going 10 years on fire truck.
Yes.
It gives us the opportunity to do some, I don't want to wait too long to get the next fire truck.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, and thank you all for working on that.
Well, thank you. It's y'all's idea, and got that feedback after, and I just thought it was really well done, because again, when we were able to do the cash flows and figure it out, it works.
Yeah.
So,
Glad you brought it up, sir.
You just need a consensus for us.
that's right. I think we need a consensus so that when, I would ask Dr. Millsaps to give a call to the EDA and to those folks and say, this is, our board is hopefully unanimous in that we're going to approve this the next night, meaning the 11th. And again, if something happens between now and then, and we've got to provisionally approve all this, because then we're going to say, well, we may not close on the 21st because there are moving parts, then we'll deal with that. That's, like I said, that is a good problem. That's going to mean that we have dollars and less debt service. That's all that means. So I'm not afraid of that. And the other thing, one more thing I would say, the other is hopefully, is that I would hope that Truist and Skyline, let's assume this gets pushed out, let's say something does happen because we get money in. I'm hoping Truist will stick to that interest rate and that rough interest rate, because since we did the request, rates have actually stayed the same, if not gotten a little better in the general marketplace. It hasn't moved away from us. So now they go the opposite way very quickly. We know that too.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a risk. But again, hopefully they'll keep with the spirit of that if something happens that has us maybe delay it or have to do that for purposes of thinking having some cash.
And once this agreement's reached and you close on 20, those are fixed rates, right?
Yes, sir, all fixed rate.
All
There is
fixed
no
rates.
variable rate.
I thought so, I just wanted to make sure that was out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm not a fan of doing a variable rate when rates are at 50-year lows, you know. You know, that's not, I think we like the idea of fixed. We know exactly what our payments are, when they are, and the worst case. They can be better, but they won't be worse.
With these being 5 different ones essentially, if we got to our next meeting and one of those 5 items we had questions on and wanted to hold for a little bit, how would that work?
I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that'll work very well. I think that the Truist too, I think you run a risk of sort of blowing up the transaction. They have made a proposal, but you might could be one of the pieces of scrap. But again, they can walk away. I mean, they're not.
Right.
So I would, again, I think it's just.
I guess my question is are the 2 Truist ones tied together, or would they? So you could do both, you wouldn't necessarily have the option.
To go into a Tactica, because they are asking for only one piece of collateral, not two. They're asking for the county admin building as opposed to, you know,
Sure.
the shell building. They're not asking for a shell building or the radio system. And that's good for us, because in fairness, I really, again, Skyline asked for those things, but from a real perspective of, you know, is that really worth something? I don't really think it is. I mean, but that's my personal opinion. It doesn't make it right.
So what's the board's thought? We have a consensus?
I think the split is the way to go, and hopefully one or more of the 11th on some of the others. That's just my opinion.
I just think there might be some unknowns on a lot of projects. That's the one thing that still has me a little bit hesitant about. Going in too deep, but I guess my fear is without knowing the exact cost, then run the risk of borrowing money that then you have a repayment penalty to pay it back.
What happens if we have to push out the May 21st deadline?
Then both banks can walk away and start all over possibly, or they may honor it, or they may change their rates or terms or conditions, because now they both know what is public, so you may or not be in the same negotiating position. For example, even after Skyline's second bring rates down, they were still 35 basis points higher. Or Truist, think of it this way, it was 35 basis points lower. So Truist might say, you know what? We'll do this again, we'll do this, but we may not be as aggressive. We may decide. So again, I think it's y'all's call, but.
Well, I'm definitely 100% on Skyline projects, the group Skyline projects. I mean, that's, we got trust there.
Yeah.
We got more that way.
Well, you have to do the radio as well. It's not an issue in the shell building. I think, again, short of getting some ARP monies would be great. You know, we don't want to go into your fund balance. We've talked about that. We showed that as an option months ago, and both your auditors and ourselves were not excited about that. Particularly your auditors took the lead on that, if you recall. So,
Yeah.
so there's no real new other dollars that are going to come about from this. So we know that enough about your budgets and all of that. So, you know, I think the key here, you know, I don't know what else to say.
And on that one in particular, I don't know that we're in a position where we could afford to borrow any more money than what we're proposing. I know
we advocate for more and more.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
When we talked about one other thing, we talked about if that new money, federal stimulus money came in, we talked about swapping out
We're talking about
the
here.
radio system
Right,
and putting in something like, or on the shell building.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying, that would certainly be
Or
a great
even,
problem.
yeah, EDA stuff, the phase 2 road construction.
Well,
Yeah, I agree. When I say problem, it's a good positive. It's a good problem to have, which is, okay, maybe it'll be less, and we gotta ask if.
Well, that was gonna be my question, is say the radio system comes in less than what we anticipated. Shell building comes in more. Over the total loan, we can move that money around from each project, can't we?
Yeah, you might have to have a board action most likely, but yes, right, they're not voted on by general obligation, by public referendum. So
And with the bank, it's a total loan, but
Yeah, bank-
Closing costs same, everything's same.
They don't care. No, they don't care. That's not, they don't care.
I wonder if it would be helpful maybe to see before we
Yeah.
come to consensus to have a closed session based on animals.
we can make a decision later, I guess it doesn't have to be right now.
Correct, I know that. Yeah.
That's right.
We need to do something, we're running half hour late, so let's just have a closed session
Yeah.
after we
I
have
mean,
a
if we're able to,
I think that's an important,
we discussed that for the public hearing.
yeah.
There's information that I don't, hopefully, I feel like I'm asking.
Well, we can.
Yeah, we are advancing.
All right, well, I appreciate it. And just keep me informed, and I mean, again, just whatever.
Very, very good work. I really
Okay, well, thank you. No,
Yeah, thank you, David.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate you being willing to take our feedback too, that's really
No, I
important.
mean, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's great. So I mean, good.
All right, this time I'll open the floor for a public comment period. It is the intent that all persons attending the meeting of the board, regardless of handicap and condition, shall have an opportunity to participate. If any person present requires any special assistance, please let the board know in order that arrangements can be made. When you come forward, state the district you're from, your name, limit your comments to 4 minutes, and this is a one-way thing. If you have any other questions or comments, you can, yeah, well, okay.
Because they don't like.
Is this an opportunity to speak on the road?
Now, that comes up next. After the public comment period, we have public hearing on 6-year secondary roads. This is just any information that you got, Sheriff Board. All right, now we'll declare the public comment period closed. Now we'll move on to our public hearing on the 6-year secondary road plan. Must have been locked here, come back.
Yeah, copy the stuff, so. Yeah, you okay with this? Having my email.
I'll give a few opening comments and then turn it over to the board, get comments from the public. And I will present, part of these comments will be presenting a draft 6-year plan, so they have something to work off of. That draft plan is simply last year's plan minus the roads that we completed, keeping the same priority as the board passed last year. The board will pass a new resolution in the next few months with a new, perhaps new, priority list. We'll keep the same priority list, the roads in the same order as you had them before. I'll also present the construction budget for next year. That's simply the amount of money, funding for secondary 6-year road plans and what projects we plan to put them on for this upcoming year. So I'll start. We finished Mill Run and Quisenberry projects last year, so that moves Ponderosa from number 2 last year to our top priority this year, and we are currently working on the right-of-way for that. Second on the list is Roger Road. Right away from that, it was much easier, and we are currently starting on that. We're clearing trees anyway, so that's just a half-mile long road. One of the things that's delayed Ponderosa is that we've kind of changed the project limits. It's a kind of on our road where it intersects 3 times with the Parkway. And we've added this section between Stewart and the Parkway, which I think is a good project too. Fortunately, it's the same route number, and we'll get that nailed down this week. We'll continue to move forward on right-of-way. Number 3 on the draft plan would be Firehouse Road. That's about a mile-long project. To part service the last section of Firehouse, and we've also been already doing some preliminary engineering, environmental, and right-of-way work on that. 4th is Starbuck, again, an unpaved road. Most of the projects on here are unpaved roads because that's the bulk of your money, and I'll get into that in a second. 5th on the draft plan is Route 712 Hope Road. Number 6, Route 820 Silverleaf. Number 7 is Route 743 Reedsville Road. Priority 8 we put on there, that's a little different kind of project. We're looking at the intersection of Merrifield Road and is it Deer Valley? Yeah, that is Deer something. I couldn't remember the name. But that's a problem intersection. We're going to work on all 4 legs of that intersection just to keep. It's unlike some of these other roads where we're paving it to, for through traffic or something like that. It's just a real maintenance issue at times, so we're going to try to do a little bit right there. We haven't nailed that down yet. Again, that's priority 8 right now, and that's several years away. And then number 9 on the priority list is Bear Ridge Road. That is hard surfacing an unpaved road all the way through.
Number 8, if that's a maintenance issue for you in terms of VDOT, does that kind of take on a different spin? Like, could it be sort of become a VDOT necessary kind of thing, rather than just?
If it's simple maintenance, it can't get done. It can't get done under maintenance. It's no different than any other paved road where you're paving it because it's got potholes and dust and mud.
Right.
You're just not
You
paying
can
for
take it
it.
off if you want to.
Right, no, just can't blame the girl for asking. You just take it off.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we could do it with maintenance, but then that's less.
Less maintenance,
I mean,
yeah.
It's only something. You're not getting any extra money anywhere.
Yeah, no, you can't print it, can you?
Nope. So anyway, there's our priority list as it stands now. The construction budget this year is projected to be about $525,000. That is less than in years past. It's not a good year for selling gas and cars and all that kind of thing, so that's reflected in the allocations. The bulk of that will go to completing the balance needed to begin Firehouse. We only have about half of what we need to do Firehouse. The rest will start funding Starbuck. Roger Road is funded. Got enough in the bank on that, and Ponderosa probably does. It depends on how much we end up doing. So $10,000 will go of your money's divided in 2 allocations. One's unpaved road fund that has to go to unpaved roads, and it has to go to unpaved roads with more than 50 vehicles a day, 50 or more vehicles a day. The other, and that's about 40,000, so it's not a large percentage of it, but that's from a telecommunication fee that VDOT collects statewide for allowing telecommunication companies to locate their utilities on a right-of-way. And that's split up based on population. That's population alone. A lot of these unpaved, like the unpaved road funds, sometimes more goes to counties that have more unpaved roads. Some counties have 0 unpaved roads. The telecommunication fee is simply based on population. So if Floyd has 1% of the population of the state, he gets 1% this month. And it turns out to be roughly in the $40,000 range. And that's the money that we can, it's got no strings attached to it as far as construction goes. The others, the unpaved road fund has to go to unpaved road 50 or more vehicles a day. The other one we use for signs and kind of incidental construction items. I mean, it's not a lot, but we can put it in a fund. And, we're putting $10,000 to that. I put a few. I can put $26,000 towards rural additions. And we haven't really pursued a rural addition lately, but the county, if it chooses, can take a rural addition is taking a private road, making it a VDOT maintained road. It has to be brought up to current standards. It has to be paved. It has to have 40-foot right of way. And we looked at a couple things a few years ago. They kind of fell through, but the funds are there, and I put some of that telecommunication fee in that in case something comes up and the county chooses to do that. Some counties do, some counties don't. Pulaski County does not do rural additions. They have for years. Montgomery County has done several. So it's just Board of Supervisors' choice. So that's the construction budget. Again, most of the funds are going towards Firehouse and Starbuck. Since Roger and Ponderosa are funded in previous years, we may need some more for Ponderosa depending on what we end up, or we may need less depending on what we do, how much we end up paying. So, that's all my presentation. I'll turn it back over to the board. And, unless you want me, I have a couple things. I can go ahead and call what names I do have.
Yes.
We've done this sign-up thing, and so we did have one person sign up at the beginning, and I will call that name first, and it's Danielle Ogle, and I'll step aside.
I'm going to give you this, I guess. It's a map of the road and pictures and petitions that are signed. Hi, everybody. We just recently, we're from Carroll County originally. We're in the Indian Valley District on Hilton Road, which is Road 757. My husband and I are from Carroll County originally. We just moved back to Indian Valley to be close to family. The road is probably a little under 2 miles. It's paved in maybe a quarter of the mile section across from the old Indian Valley Post Office, where it starts there, and it loops from Indian Valley Post Office Road back to Indian Valley Post Office Road. It's rough driving conditions. One end is very narrow, and if you meet somebody, you have to back down when you're not a great driver. Like me, that sometimes is hard, so you have to back down and find enough space to pull over and let somebody by. The last road traffic report showed an average of about 90 cars per day. That was in 2016. I think in part because Greasy Creek is accessible on that road, and so I think a lot of people probably come down through there to fish. And there's lots of people who have moved in. We recently bought an 88-acre farm on that road, and luckily with the pandemic, my husband's job turned remote, and so he's able to work from home. I'm a nurse practitioner here in town for Carillion. So, we're lucky that we were able to come home after about 20 years and be close to family and be back closer to home. So, but it is rough conditions. There are lots of potholes that are patched by farmers with hay. So, the creek washes the road out lots of times. It washes debris and stuff into the road. Some portions of the road, when it rains a lot, are almost impassable. In the year that we've had it, almost a year, they came and put gravel once, but it was only in patches here and there. Some spots were so thick that it'll wreck you, and then some spots were just mud that you sink up into. So I wanted to see if we could put that on the 6-year road plan possibly, just because there is a lot of traffic through there, and the road is pretty harsh on vehicles and things of that nature. So. Anybody have any questions? So I drew a map for us because I'm not a good drawer. And then the pictures are just when the last rain this past weekend, the pictures I took from that little rain. You can imagine some of these bigger rains we've had are pretty rough. So there was a couple days that you could barely get through in some parts because of trees and water standing in the road. So that's all I have, I guess. Does anybody have any questions?
Justin, could you point out that for me? Don't mind, I suggest I wrote that, would you?
Comes out of Bertho, Indian Valley Post Office.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then goes downhill.
Mhm.
I would surmise that some of these other folks who live on the adjacent road use this road.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And there's quite a few houses, you know, on that road.
Right.
I had to go use my turtle to do that, that's my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fix some hay.
Yeah, if you meet somebody on that one section, it's pretty, especially when I don't back up very well, so I usually make them back up.
Are there other sections on that particular road, are there sections that are used more than others? Like is there?
Yeah, I think this section that comes out in front of the old Indian Valley Post Office is the one probably everybody prefers. That's the longest for me because I live on the other end, but that's the end I prefer to go in and out of just because the road's wider. It's still pretty bad throughout. There is one section where we have, the neighbors have put an orange cone up. It's in a sharp curve up above our land, and the creek kind of runs under it, and so you have to get to the far right when you're going around that sharp curve. If you don't, you're going to fall in off the road into the creek. And one of the neighbors is just stuck an orange cone up there so that to warn people not to drive off there. So, but yeah, I would say the section towards Indian Valley Post Office is used the most because people know the other end's so narrow, they're afraid to come down through there.
Sometimes it's hard to get 2 miles done at a time.
Yeah.
The section done.
Right.
The section that people use the most is the one that's paved the most, and then it turns gravel. Yeah.
And that's
So
right
you could
before
come
where the
to-
creek crosses, right? So you've got the paved road in end, you got a couple of houses, and then the creek.
And then the creek, and then it winds on around the farmland back by the creek.
Right.
Our farm is probably the last of where the creek comes through because we have a bridge that you have to cross to go over the creek to go through our driveway. And then it circles back through our land and then back to like land owned by Mike Herman back through there.
Right.
Yeah.
Dookie.
Well, this section that your photos are, look like it's wide enough to be able to.
Right.
The better part of the section is wide, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fairly wide.
That's often an issue is you get into so much cost and you have on the side of the mountain trying to.
The other section where it's more narrow is farmland, pretty much on that side.
The road, a large portion of the road is actually below the bank
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, there's just a barely enough room cut through the bank for one vehicle, not a very wide vehicle to get through, to pass through.
It's always rough.
Yeah, so that's the section if you meet somebody, you just.
I don't think I've been through there. I think I went to drop off some hay from one end at the post office, and then turned around and went back out and said, don't keep going.
Yeah, don't keep going.
If my memory serves me correct, I think there was a rescue call there formally that they had some difficulties from your side.
That was the farm we just bought. Yeah, the guy had a stroke and I think it fell in the creek. Ambulance got stuck on Old Logan Road. Yeah, it was like a 2 to 3 hour rescue, I
There's some
believe.
issues of
Getting stuff in there.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With this.
That was the only name that I had that signed up previously, but anyone that else would like to come up and speak on those matters is welcome.
I'm Jack Wall, I'm from the Little River District. I own Floyd Village and live there. It's off of Franklin Pike, but it also borders on Sam's Road, which is a little dead-end road. Comes off of Franklin Pike, and I'm involved with, I've been working a lot recently with Jeff Wade, who lives on Sam's Road. Together we have about 250 acres in there. We're doing some farming, but we're doing some business development. We have 3 houses that are being built at the Eco Village that would have access off the Sam's Road entrance. And we're also building a couple of houses over on, well, it's on a property we own that is, has bordering on Franklin Pike, but it's to the, I guess you might call it the east of Sam's Road. And with the land we have there, Jeff and I are working on a business development to build a biochar production facility within there on some land that Jeff Wade owns. But so that I'm just mentioning that there is a fair amount of activity and development on that little road there, and it will be increasing over time. It is a gravel road, and it's not very long, but like I say, it's with the access coming in. There are a number of houses on the road, but there will be even more activity with increasing activities at Floyd Eco Village and across the road on the other side on some of the property that Jeff owns, some of the property that I own. And so we're interested in putting it on the radar for the county to see about considering paving that road. We just think that the use coming in there, potential, there are trucks that come in there as it is, but there'll be a little bit more of that occurring in years to come.
What was the facility you said you were going to do with Jeff? What was the?
We're working on a biochar production facility.
Biochar, okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a new thing. It has to do with when you take waste wood products and you essentially bake it at 1200 degrees for 8 hours in an anaerobic chamber with no oxygen. It turns that wood product into a pure carbon product that is ionized. It has a negative ion result from it. It's a highly porous material. It attracts minerals and it absorbs water. But it can be used as a soil amendment, but it also has some benefits. We're trying to work, there are studies being done. It is a tremendously beneficial amendment to concrete and asphalt as a replacement. It strengthens some of these products and reduces the weight. And there are a number of different benefits to biochar, and we're working with a business owner in Colorado who has really good technology on that. To do that. And we've got, obviously, have a lot of wood products, waste wood products you can convert, even treated lumber, railroad ties. The process cleans the product and makes a pure carbon product, which has no residue in it. It's a clean product. Actually, we're working with it to add to animal feed because it does. So it's a little bit like activated charcoal, and that it's an inert carbon product that, with the negative ion things, it does attract minerals to it, but as a soil amendment, it attracts nutrients into it, and it provides it balances out the minerals and the nutrients that are needed for the root structure of plants, and it also absorbs water and retains water. It has a benefit in terms of stabilizing the soil. It's part of regenerative agriculture, essentially, which you may be seeing things about trying to get so soils are working effectively. Biochar adds to that and accelerates.
I know. So you're going to build a factory, is what you're saying?
We're looking at putting in some kilns in there that will take these leftover 2x4s and different wood products or dead wood from forests and things like that can be turned into biochar.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak about the road up hearing?
Hey, how are you guys doing? Rob Campbell, Joe Terman's district out of Burkport, but I think part of the roads that I'm talking about also fall in Cheston's Indian Valley district. They get calls from me from time to time. And welcome to Floyd, now that you know what the roads are like.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're already on the list, so thank you all. We just want to keep our faces here so we aren't forgotten about. There is a safety concern I've mentioned to these guys before. At the new bridge that was put in on Reach, was a very small bridge there. There's a drop off there. Where they kind of, I guess it was always there before, but they cleaned some trees up and stuff that made it a little bit more obvious. It's in a straight section coming down a hill. 90% of the time it's never going to be a problem. But my thought is icy roads, you're coming out of a curve down a hill. If you lose traction on ice, either side you could go over that bridge and it would probably be a 10, 12 foot drop into a creek. Just something that we've noticed that might want to be mentioned. A lot of our concerns that we mentioned a couple years ago were safety oriented, so just kind of wanted to bring that up. Another thing, I think we're number 7 on that list, so we've got a little time, but prioritizing that section as Mr. Yoder.
5 really quick.
Excuse me?
You become 5 really quick.
So as Mr. Yoder brought up, it is better to do roads in sections, which VDOT had told us, and so we kind of wanted to address that, prioritizing that section as we get closer, because I think the route number you're using is for the section that's on the other side, and we were thinking more people travel out. I think 728 maybe the number that more people come, but we got time.
Yeah, I think I've spoken to a couple people out there. I think I have it nailed down. I may have used an old template.
Okay. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
The county did get an email about Quisenberry Road, and Cindy's given me that, and that we did most of it, but again, like Lauren mentioned, we'd like to do about a mile sections of all we can handle as far as a project without taking our crews away too long, or making the project just last so long. So the request is for finishing, I believe that according to the email, is a third of a mile left. So I just wanted to mention that because that email came in. I'm sure you all have copies of that.
Who is that email from?
It's from Ms. Bowman, I think?
Yeah, Lorene Bowman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers?
Sorry.
Yeah, Bowman.
Yes,
Very briefly, John Hale, I'm on Silverleaf Lane, and we are on this 6-year plan, and as now we are number 6. I guess to let you know that the squeaky wheel, we may get some grease. Make sure that we keep our faces known to everybody. We don't want to give up on this, and this is the 3rd time we've been on this 6-year road plan, supposedly. And we haven't got there yet. So we're hoping that this time we can stay there, rather than somebody's on front of us. So just, keep our name and our road, it's 820 on Silverleaf Lane. Thank you.
Thank you.
I always advise people who are already on the plan to keep showing up to the hearings just to make sure, because boards change sometimes.
Well,
And they think if nobody comes, then let's not care anymore.
the testament is Roger Road.
Yeah, yeah, it's been out there for a while. Yeah. And maybe the longest one. So, are there any other people who would like to speak on the secondary 6-year plan? All right, then, the board does not need to take any action tonight. Sometimes we go and review these things, sometimes the board, it's a little difficult now to do it as a group. You review them yourselves, and I would like to get a resolution before the end of June. Because our fiscal year, and we good to have all that in by June. So I would ask that as the only stipulation. And there probably would be room to add a project this year. So, okay, consider that.
One question, if you don't mind. I'm sure this has been asked. I just don't remember. I may have even asked it years before. I just wondered when we finalize and adopt this list, if the maintenance, just the routine maintenance and things could be geared towards in a way on these roads that would focus on maybe, moving in that direction. So the maintenance is being kept up, some safety issues are being addressed, and we are moving forward to when their time comes and these roads become an ability to be hard surface. There's some things that's already been done, some progress. I'm sure you guys probably think about that.
They do, and actually, we've got a very similar question on a road that's on the 6-year plan in Giles County. There's reasons these roads are on the construction list, because they're problem sections, and so construction will help out on some of these projects, but in the meantime, maintenance can do as well. And I share this list with our crews, so they know that what the public's coming and talked about, and those are the things that people want to see. And if whatever we can do maintenance-wise, it's not probably going to make the construction project any easier, but what it points out is the fact that it's on the plan highlights the fact that it's an issue. People really doesn't have a lot of drainage issues, and potholes or whatever. People, might not come to a public hearing and ask whether they're beyond it. When they come, it's because there are issues.
So they're aware of it.
Yes.
It's on the minds and keep out on it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Wall's question, and maybe y'all can. Is there an in-state maintenance sign?
Sam's Road?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sam's Road, the gravel section is not a beat out road.
It is,
That
right.
would have to be a rural addition, which I spoke about earlier.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it was added, I can't remember, a long time ago, but it was only added up to a certain point.
So it would be from that point back over to Barberry.
Yes.
It
It comes down, there's a curve right near our house, and it comes down, I've driven through there before. But that would make it a through road, so.
Right, and what we're talking about, we're
Yeah,
not
it came up.
necessarily, we're just looking at the state maintained part is really where the traffic is.
Okay.
Obviously, there's no traffic going through the rest of the road.
Okay.
It's just, I actually not measured what the distance is, it'd be about like a half mile at the most, I'm thinking.
Okay.
But when you access Sam's Road from Franklin Pike, your community accesses Sam's Road from Franklin Pike, is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And that's the thing with the extra activity at Eco Village. Quite a bit of that is ending up coming in from Sam's Road, because we have the access coming off of Eco Village Trail, but they're, the back way coming in basically Sam's Road.
You also have Yarrow Way,
Yep, Yarrow Way is, yep.
that's what comes into Sam's Road.
Yep, that's
Just so that I understand it correctly, Sam's Road is not a through road. There's two state maintained sections, one from Barberry and one from.
No, it's maintained for a certain mileage from Franklin Pike, and then there's an in-state maintenance. It was added as a rural addition a long time ago. The part, it is a very short part from the in-state maintenance to Barberry is not
Correct.
state maintained.
It's not.
It's not state maintained.
So that's the
Pretty rough.
section.
It's very, very rough, yes.
But that's the part we couldn't.
I proposed at one point making into a bicycle path down there, but I don't know, it would be quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the people that live down there would want it.
Maybe they.
Right, yeah, I think we've actually sort of looked into it and had some
There are
people
people that don't want it.
who were interested in it.
Yeah, we've been,
Yeah.
they did. But we're talking, so just to be clear, Mr. Wall, we are talking about the part from where the state maintenance ends out to Franklin Pike. Is that correct?
No.
No.
Well,
It's part
the
of
central
the state
part, and
maintenance
again, I
ends.
should have measured it, how much it is, but it's basically from Franklin Pike down to the entrance at Yarrow Way into the Eco Village, because Jeff Wade, who has the other entrance, is across, Jeff Wade lives at 181 Sam's Road. He is about 2/3 of the way down that way. He has quite a bit of property and has built a road into his farmland there.
Right?
So that's where all the activity is. So on that very short piece of road there, but there is quite a bit of traffic right now, and And we anticipate another year that that's going to be increasing a lot.
I'll review the part of Sam's Road that's in the BOS system right now and see if there's any maintenance issues or anything that would qualify for 6-year plan funding.
Thank you. Not that I appreciate the review.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one thing? I've gotten a lot of calls on Lick Ridge, and people weren't able to make it, but I just want to get on record, have it on record that as people called. It was on the 6-year road plan 2 years ago, I think. Down to, it was a section from the pavement down to, there's an old church there, I can't think of the name, it was about a mile section. And that was taken off last year, so going back to.
Yeah, and it might have
The
taken off.
squeaky wheel don't show up and then it didn't get back on.
Yeah,
So
and there might be a traffic count
Okay.
issue on that.
All right, so anyway, just, I'll be asking for that again when it.
Okay.
when it comes up.
Yeah.
I also have somebody who sent something in. This should be added to the record, Ms. Ryan. To whom it may concern, this is from a constituent in my district. My name is Blake Loftus, and I've been a Floyd County resident since 2013, and she apologizes for not being able to attend this meeting in person. Road maintenance has always been a very pressing issue for my family in Floyd County. I live on a dirt road that cannot or has not been properly maintained by VDOT, despite my county representatives doing their utmost to ensure the safety of their constituents. There are several residents on my road and many others in Floyd County who are quite elderly or have critical health conditions who cannot be accessed in order to provide potential life-saving services during extreme weather conditions. I have read the 6-year secondary construction plan being presented this evening for the specific 9 roads being addressed. I personally know and have regularly driven these roads, which has also contributed to my family's personal expenses of replacing thousands of dollars of new struts and other vehicular maintenance in our 4-wheel drive vehicle numerous times. The roads currently being proposed for surface treatment are critical to provide safe emergency medical access, educational transport, and individual commuting to provide income for my Floyd neighbors and our community as a whole. I ask you to please approve this plan for the benefit of all Floyd County residents. Thank you very much for your time and effort to continue our lovely community. Ms. Loftus lives on County Line Church Road.
All right. Any other comments or other questions from the board? I will be contacting the county administrator and board members. I'll be here in a couple weeks also. And we'll discuss a resolution and a final priority list. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Clark, before you leave, you might want to mention to a whole bunch of people that a bunch of our signs have been laid down. Speed limit signs, just all through the county. It looked like, who knows? I mean, they all couldn't have been run over.
Is it 25 mile an hour when going toward the schools there?
Yeah, I saw that one this afternoon, yeah.
Just off of 221 there at the Old Wood Funeral Home.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like somebody took a lot of time to.
Yeah. This isn't just wind and
No.
falling the ground. Okay.
No.
Okay. So we get a lot, I mean, this is our time to straighten signs. The thaw is it, but that's not what that's not
No.
what this is. Okay. Pretty clear. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is public hearing on the Floyd County proposed FY22 annual budget and tax levies.
And I believe them too. So, a public hearing concerning the proposed FY22 annual budget will be held in the boardroom of the County Administration Building, 120 West Oxford Street, Floyd, Virginia 24091 on April 27, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible. All persons desiring to be heard shall be accorded an opportunity to present written comments or oral testimony within such reasonable time limits as determined by the Board of Supervisors. Oh, it should be on. Do I need to be louder? Okay, my apologies. Due to the public health threat posed by the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, current guidance by the Governor of Virginia and the Virginia Department of Health on social distancing and public gatherings, proper social distancing and protective measures will be observed at all times. Citizens who desire to provide public comment in person are asked to sit in designated spots as directed by staff until the citizen is invited to address the board. The meeting will be streamed live via internet. Any Floyd County citizen wishing to speak by phone may call County Administration at 540-745-9300 by 4 p.m. on April 26, 2021 and provide their telephone number and express their desire to provide comment by phone. Citizens who desire to provide public comment by phone will be called during the meeting. Any Floyd citizen can also provide written comments prior to the meeting, and those comments will be provided to the Board of Supervisors, entered into the official minutes of the meeting, and summarized by the chair or designee at the meeting for the benefit of the public. For detailed information, the public is directed to call the County Administration Office. The annual budget pursuant to Chapter 25, Section 15.2-2506, Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, is for the informative and fiscal planning purposes only, except the public school budget. In no event, including public school budgets, shall preparation, publication, and approval be deemed to be an appropriation. No money shall be paid out or become available to be paid out for any contemplated expenses unless and until there has been made an appropriation for such expenditures by the Floyd County Board of Supervisors. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the first time I've been there. Thank you.
Very good, Bill.
Absolutely. I was ready for you to read all the notes.
If you would love me to. Then there'll be a quiz later this evening. As you all know, sometimes my attention to detail needs a little more.
Is there anyone present that wants to make a comment on the proposed budget or tax increase?
Chair, we don't have anyone signed up.
I was going to ask you if anybody called in or. So apparently we don't have anyone that drives down the rail, I don't reckon so. So I'll declare public comment period on that closed. Then we'll move on to public hearing on road abandonment request for this.
You want to put a time on the break?
Yeah, you're
You're ahead of schedule.
We're back on schedule again.
Just in case somebody's coming.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
I haven't looked at the clock, so.